Hi again, I'm Adam.
And I'm Kara, and welcome to Crunchy Cozy Games.
Yeah, so we have been counting down our top 100 games of all time
That we played last year.
that we played last year, exactly. Because, the reality is we are both busy people with jobs and
true.
also a toddler. So we don't get all of the time that we like to play for games. But I crunched the numbers and I did the statistics. We played 130 individual games last year.
Yes, that's not including the ones that we played more than once,
Right.
of course.
But that averages to about one game every 3 days.
It's a lot of games.
So I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah.
That being said, and counting down some of our top games of all time, I know it has been really interesting for me to see how different we feel about certain games. Like there are definitely
true.
some games that I have heard you mention that are a little more crunchy that I like digging into that I'm
Yeah.
kind of surprised are so low.
Well, I think the reality is, like you said, we've played a lot of games.
Yes.
And I think for me, having more of a balance of crunchy and, the theme and the coziness and just like the feel good part of the game is a little bit more what appeals to me. I want more of a balance.
Right. Well, and I think what's going to be interesting about as we move into the next set of 10 games, we're going to start seeing a lot more games that either you or I have mentioned before.
Yes.
And so I think when we approach those games, we might just give a little bit. We don't necessarily have to talk about how the game is played because we've done that before.
Sure, that's fair.
But I think it'd be interesting to give our different take on it or why it ranks higher on our list.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Because what is unique about this list that you're seeing is that all of the games that are on this list we played together. So
it's the same playthrough that we're rating it based on. Yeah.
Exactly. So I might have had a great game and I thought, well, I came away from that game really liking it. Yeah. It's at the top of my list. And if it was a miserable day for you or, just the gameplay didn't click for you, it might rank lower on yours.
Yeah, that's true.
So what do we say we get to it?
Yeah.
All right. So my number, what are we on? My number 80.
Mm-hmm.
My number 80 is a game that you have already talked about.
Okay.
It's a hidden movement game.
Okay. Which one?
Right. It's kind of the one that's considered like the classic hidden movement game, and that is Whitehall Mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoy Whitehall Mystery. Of course, when we played through it, I was Jack the Ripper, and you and two of our other friends were the detectives. I think it is invigorating to play as Jack the Ripper because you are moving around on the map. You're just kind of writing down the different places that you've been, and everybody else is trying to figure out where you have been, and they ask, have you been to this location? Have you been to this location? And if you have been, they put down a yellow mark. And they can figure out pretty easily where you could be from that because you only have a certain number of moves to reach your destination.
Man, that game is devious though because there's like connections that are like extra long that bypass a lot of other ones. I mean, it's tricky for sure.
It's very tricky. I really enjoy it. I mean, you guys were so close to catching me, and it was really one lucky move that you guys just didn't anticipate that sent you in the wrong direction and cleared things up for me almost for the rest of the game.
Well, I mean, you circled basically the entire map.
I did, yeah. I mean, I had to because you guys were all blocking me.
It's true.
But it is a very exciting game. I will say, I think a challenge for 2024, I would really challenge you to be the one. I know it's stressful, but I think you should just try it. It's super cool.
We'll
see. Yeah, my number 80, Whitehall Mystery.
Okay, number 80 for me is one that we played recently that you talked about on your last list.
Yeah.
And that is Canvas.
Oh,
Yeah. And so, simple game. I really love those transparent cards.
Yes.
And making the paintings. I think it is really cool. And just like you talked about, I think the reason that it ranks lower for me, even though it is such a cool theme and such like a really like innovative gameplay, I think even with those factors, the trade-off between making something cool and scoring the points just kind of takes away from it a little bit for me, especially as somebody that we've talked about this before too, somebody that likes to maximize my points in games. And so I really struggle with sacrificing the cool factor of my painting for the points towards winning.
Right. You know, there are 2 different expansions for this game, and I wonder if they do anything to sort of fix that problem. I'll have to look into it.
I don't know. Yeah, it's worth trying out. So yeah, number 80 for me is Canvas.
All right, we're just kind of zipping through now. So 79 for me is a new game from last year. It actually released last year. It was one that we kickstarted because we're a big fan of sort of, I guess they're not all in a series, but it's the same publisher that puts these out. They're puzzly games. And this was the 4th one in that series. It was called Fit to Print.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So in this one, all players are playing as anthropomorphic animals that are running a newspaper for spreading the word across the woodland.
It's very silly.
It's very silly. But it's also just kind of a stressful, nightmarish little puzzle.
It really is.
But in a fun way. Because basically everybody has their desk that they are grabbing stories from the center. So all the stories are these polyomino tiles. And once you feel like you've got enough of those, then you say, okay, go for it. And then you start laying everything out on your board to lay out like your newspaper. That's the easy part. Where it starts to get really difficult is in the scoring, because you have to balance the tone of your newspaper between happy and sad. And you have to balance out like certain kinds of stories. There's like business and news and weather. I mean, all sorts of different things like that you can't put next to each other.
You're missing one of the things that makes that even more stressful, though, is that everything is on a time limit.
Yeah, it is. Now there is a less stressful mode where you can play without the timer.
Okay.
But we played with the timer, and we actually played with the like relaxed timer, which was 5 minutes per round. It was still incredibly stressful.
So stressful. Because you also can't, you just are piling things on your little desk, and you can't start to put them in. Once you stop taking tiles and start laying them, you can't grab anything else or put anything back. So you're kind of stuck with what you get, and so you have to build it in your head first.
Right. Yeah, this is definitely a game that you have to be okay with negative points.
Yes.
Because, as we've talked about before, my mind just doesn't necessarily work with the geometry of a lot of polyominoes, so I was getting tons of negative points at the end because stuff I wanted just didn't fit. But I still had a blast with it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I am really eager to play it again.
Yeah.
So that's my number 79, Fit to Print.
All right. My number 79 is a classic. It is Acquire.
Yes.
I really enjoy Acquire. It is a, oh gosh, what would you even call it?
It's a stock.
It's
stock trading and hotel management. Well, I guess not hotel management.
Not management. But you're buying and trading stake in these hotel chains and doing mergers, and it is another diabolical puzzle. It is just fascinating, and there's a lot of strategy involved in when to start a hotel chain and when to hold on to the stocks that you've bought in other ones, and holding on to your pieces that could connect things in the board. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's really, really fun. And now we have the original.
It is not the original. It's been around since the 1960s.
Wow. Well, we have a board that has the cardboard chips, and I know that there is an upgraded version with, clicky tiles that we would love to get.
Yeah, Amazon lost my package, so thanks.
But that's one that I really enjoy. We've had a lot of fun with it every time that we've played it. And so my number 79 is Acquire. Yeah.
I love that game. I think that there is, it can run away from you a little bit, like somebody that gets the early acquisition and they get all the money from that, then they end up with all the power.
It's true. It can definitely snowball very quickly.
But it's a great game.
It is.
Okay, my number 78 is another new game this last year. It was another Kickstarter that we backed that I was pretty excited about. Raising Robots.
Oh, yeah.
So we love engine builders.
Yes.
As you'll find out later on this list, there's a specific engine builder that's very similar to this game that we also both like a lot. This one plays, you've got 3 different rows of types of robots. And each time you use that action, you then get to use all the robots that are in that that row. And so it's a lot of types of things that you're playing cards and you're paying your resource costs to play these different adorable robot cards.
So cute.
Yeah, they've got like, it's all found stuff around. Like you might have a robot whose head is a toaster, and it's all sorts of cute stuff like that. But it plays pretty well. I was a little surprised how crunchy it was, though.
It really, I mean, it had some elements that made it even more crunchy with the kind of on the left side, the action section where you're choosing your actions.
Right.
The like kind of going round your own little individual board was really interesting, and deciding which actions to use and which ones to not.
Right.
I mean,
the other thing that's really interesting in this element is that you have these dice that you're rolling, and depending on what dice you roll, the energy that you get might also go to other players. So
yes,
even if
true.
they were skipping one of those actions in the round, they actually still get to take that action with whatever energy was rolled on the dice. So I thought that was really unique.
It is,
we played it just the two of us, and they kind of had some AI people that were rolling dice, which is a little different.
Yeah.
But I'm eager to see that one with more players to see how different it is. So yeah, my number 78, Raising Robots.
All right, 78 for me is one that you've talked about. It is Century: A New World.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I know that you've talked about several of them already, but I don't remember which one is which.
A New World is the worker placement.
The worker placement one. Okay. So, I mean, I really love worker placement games. I really like the Century series. And I mean, this is a solid game. It is, as far as worker placement goes, it's on the simpler side.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a very fun game. I always love, I talked about it last time, the darling like little bowls of cubes. It's just it's so fun. I'm a sucker for good components.
Well, and it's interesting because, in my head, I think that A New World is above Spice Road, but I know you really like Splendor, which I think compares very specifically to Spice Road.
Yes.
And so I'll be eager to see how the three games end up ranking for you.
So 78, Century: A New World.
All right, moving on to 77. 77 is one that I think I taught you for the first time at Christmas. We actually played it with my family, and they enjoyed it so much that I actually sent them away with it. Number 77 for me is Cockroach Poker. And then, of course, we've acquired the Cockroach Poker Royal, which just changes a few things, but it's basically the same game.
Essentially, yeah.
This might be one of my favorite just quick bluffing games. We talked about Sheriff of Nottingham on your list. I think what Cockroach Poker does is essentially that game, but it just makes it that much easier.
Yeah, it's definitely not as complicated. I mean, we were playing with some pretty young kids.
Yeah. My niece is 9. My nephew is 6, almost 7. But yeah, they really enjoyed it. In fact, my niece loved it so much she was teaching her friends the game. But it's a really simple premise. You basically have a deck of cards. You look at a card and you make a declaration and pass it to somebody else. You might say like, "Oh, Kara, I've got a scorpion here." And then she has the choice to believe you or not believe you. But of course, if she's wrong, then she gets stuck with the card. If she's correct, then the person who gave it to her is stuck with the card. But the real devious part of the game is if you've got 6 players around the table, whoever gets past it first can look at it, and then they can pass it to somebody else and make a declaration. They can either confirm what was passed to them, or they can lie and say, that wasn't a scorpion.
Or keep the lie going.
Right. And so it's really fun because then you're kind of bluffing with the whole table.
Right.
The game goes on until somebody gets either 4 of a kind of one particular bug, or if they run out of cards in their deck because they keep getting stuck with stuff.
Yes.
So it's one where there's only one loser, which is a little mean, but it's also one of those games that I've never played it just once. Like you always play it and then you're like, all right, let's go again.
Well, and it's also one of those games where the person who ends up losing is like collecting those and they're like, dang it. It's never like, it doesn't feel malicious when you lose. It really is just all in good fun.
Yeah. So my number 77, Cockroach Poker.
All right, 77 for me. Is a really cute little 2-player game that we have had for a while. It is Santorini.
Oh yeah. Love that game.
Yeah. So this is another one that has the pieces are so cool, and you're building towers and blipping around the map. And it is very puzzly. And it's, oh man, you're just messing directly with, you're blocking people from getting their points. And so I really have liked that game when we have played it without the god powers.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the god powers can start making it a little imbalanced.
Yeah.
In fact, they actually have in the rule book, like, hey, if you're playing this one, don't play with any of these.
Right. So I think that, there are some things that could be done to make it a little bit better. I really like just like the classic. It's, like checkers. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a quick game.
It's very fast. We
Yes.
usually don't just play one time.
Right.
We'll usually play like best 2 out of 3 or something. And it is very cute, very fun, quick and snappy. Number 77, Santorini.
All right, 76 for me. It's a game I don't think you liked very much. It's another new one. It's a game that has been all the rage this fall to winter. In fact, it was pretty hard to find in stores because it's a collectible card game, and that is Disney Lorcana.
Yeah.
So I really enjoy this. I mean, first of all, I have one of those personalities where I just like to collect things. So it's been a lot of fun for me to open up packs of cards and see what we've got. I recognize that the thing that's really difficult about this is the barrier to entry of this and just about any other collectible card game is that you've got to put all the work in up front.
Yes.
You've got to figure out a deck that works for you that you're going to take. And then, there's a lot of reading that you have to do to figure out how the cards are going to interact with each other. And then you come to the game with your deck. And the rules for building a deck in this game are actually pretty light compared to a lot of trading card games that I've seen. Basically, you just have to have 60 cards, and they're comprised of 2 of the different colors that they have, of which there's 6. But it's definitely one of those that I think is really intimidating, and you have to have knowledge of how those cards are going to work, specifically in your deck, to know when to make the decision for when to use something for resources and when to play it or when to, scrap it.
I also think that, when we played, we were really just, we were not familiar with the cards at all.
Right.
We just pulled them out of that, starter deck pack and just shuffled them together and went.
Yeah. And
I think that some of those decisions, like you're talking about, just didn't end up working out for me. I ended up making the quote unquote wrong decisions. Just because I think I didn't have all of the information to make good decisions in playing the game. So, as I've read more cards, as we've gotten more of them, maybe I will feel a little more comfortable. I'm anxious to get that one back to the table in 2024 and see how I feel about it.
I think the other thing that is a fair criticism about this game is that you really don't get a lot of cards. Like, you start with 7, but you're almost always playing 1 and using 1 for resources. And so it feels like you're depleting your hand very quickly.
That's true.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm eager to see all the cards. I think they're really neat. So yeah.
The cards are really cool, like the cards themselves.
Yeah. So my number 76, Disney Lorcana.
My number 76 is one that we backed on Kickstarter. It is The Spill.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it, this is kind of like Pandemic actually, but with
very similar,
but with a different theme. So it is saving the oceans, and I think what I really enjoyed about this game. So the randomness in Pandemic is you grab cards, right? The randomness in this game is that you're taking dice and you're rolling them down this giant tower that's in the center of the board. And kind of where they end up falling is where the oil spill is.
Right.
And I think what I prefer about that is that the intensity that gets added is adding extra dice, which could go to the same place but could not. Whereas the intensity that's added in Pandemic is just the same place over and over is getting hit. So it feels different just adding an extra dice. But I think that the kind of circular gameplay is really interesting. The people that you're playing as, the characters, have powers that sometimes they're helpful. Some are more helpful than others.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Pandemic in that way.
Yes. And, you know, you kind of have to be strategic at the beginning when you're choosing which ones you're going to be.
Right.
We have played this both as 2 players and with 4 players. And when we were playing with 2, it's one of those where you have to play 2 characters. Like, there need to be 4 people playing the game. It is one that I think we have won both times.
We have. Narrowly.
Right. It feels fraught. And it's always really sad when you don't get to rescue one of the animals. I mean, there's definitely some things that are really fun, some things that are really challenging. But I really enjoyed this game. So 76, The Spill.
Nice. All right, so 75, quarter of the way now. 75 for me is a unique game that I don't think we have anything like in our collection aside from this game, and it's a programming game called Colt Express.
Oh yeah.
Basically, in this game, everybody that's playing is playing as a different Wild West outlaw, and you've got this. I mean, the board is actually this like cardboard train that you put together, which is really neat. It's got 2 different levels, and basically what you're doing is you are playing everybody plays cards in a round, and you play them either face up or face down depending on what the card says. But basically what happens is you choose to either climb or shoot or rob someone, and then everybody else plays a card, and then after everybody has set up their cards, you put those in a deck, and then you start revealing those actions one by one. So I might have thought it was a great idea to shoot, and then when I get to my turn, there was nobody around in my car when I shot, so I just totally miss.
Yeah.
So it's one of those that you're always kind of thinking about what the next step is, depending on what cards are in your hand.
And trying to gauge what other people are going to do, because it totally impacts the success of your moves.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, there's an element of strategy there, but there's also, I mean, it's also a little bit of luck too.
Right.
But I just really enjoy that. I think it's got a great table presence when you set it up and you're actually moving across the physical train.
Sometimes I feel like the pieces can be a little bit fiddly.
Sure. And I mean, I think that's kind of the same when you're building anything with cardboard.
Yes, that's fair.
But yeah, it's a neat little game. I think it would be great for kids as long as, you know, you are cool with them being outlaws. But 75, Colt Express.
All right. My number 75 is a game called Horrified.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah. Horrified is a very cute game. It's kind of a, you know, save the town from the classic horror film monsters.
Yeah. Dracula.
Yes. And
the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yes. Is there a mummy?
There is a mummy. Yeah, there's Mummy and Frankenstein's monster and the Bride of Frankenstein.
Yes.
This monster.
Yeah. So we have it's a very fun game. It's, you know, one of those where you're going around the map and you're collecting resources and you're trying to save townspeople while also trying to complete objectives that will help you defeat the monster.
Right.
And you are usually playing with 2 monsters at a time, or 2 or that determines the difficulty, right?
Right, and that's
2,
one of the
3, or
things
4.
I like the best about the game is that it's like, hey, if you want a simple game, play with 2 monsters. You want kind of like our default difficulty, play with 3. If you want a really hard game, play with 4.
Right. And so I think both times that we've played with 2.
We played with 3 last time. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But yeah, it's very fun. It's another one that's kind of silly.
Yeah. It's very campy, and I love it.
Oh, it is super campy, and the art is also really campy. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of in that like cartoon comic book kind of style.
Oh, for sure.
That is, for the theme, is very delightful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So number 75, Horrified.
All right, 74 for me is a 2-player game that I think you played for the first time recently, Jaipur.
Oh, yes.
Jaipur is it's just such a simple game. You basically have a market of goods, and on your turn, you can either take a card, or you can take all of the camel cards on there, or you can sell goods. And so there are certain tiles or cards that you want to collect a lot of, because when you do, you get to turn those in for a sale token, which those diminish in value as you go. So you're kind of collecting these different sets. And I believe the game ends when, like, I think it's either 4 of the 6 or 4 of the 5 stacks are depleted. But it plays super quick. It's really easy to understand.
Fast. Yeah.
But it's just, I think it's just a really charming, quick playing game. So I like it a lot. Yeah. 74. Jepper.
My number 74 is Cartographers. I'm going to be super honest. I don't remember a lot about Cartographers.
Okay.
When did we play that game?
So it's your brother's. So we actually played it with him. They
is it the Roll and Write?
It is Roll and Write.
It's a Roll and Write. Okay.
I'm questioning your entire list now, Kara. Better than Dwellings of Eldervale. What's the game like? I don't know.
Clearly, I enjoyed it more in the moment of playing it. Than,
sure.
You know.
Yeah, whatever you need to tell yourself.
Okay, so now I'm remembering this. It's a Roll and Write with kind of like a castle theme. No? A map?
It's a map, yeah.
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 Well, I tried.
So yeah, I mean you're basically kind of setting out your map, and you write different things down there, like woodland areas. You've got rivers and stuff that you go through. Is this the one
also where we would pass to each other and you draw monsters to screw other people up?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because you'll draw on other people's maps because different things have different scoring conditions.
Yes.
And so somebody being able to get a shape that totally messes up your blocks can really, really make it difficult for you to fill in the rest.
Yeah.
It is a charming little game. Again, Roll and Writes for me, I think I focus too hard on like
the drawing.
Do my trees look good here? And then everybody else is done, I'm still on my first square. And so it adds a literal layer of stress to me that I just don't like.
Yeah.
But I did like that interactive element, like passing it around.
Yeah, that's different than any of the other Roll and Writes that we've played.
Great.
Yeah. So number 74, Cartographers.
Okay, you don't remember. 73 for me is a really neat little dice puzzler game that you are setting stained glass windows. 73 for me is Sagrada. Which I will say, I really like Sagrada. And so when I was looking at my list, I was like, how is it this low? And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the last time we played it, we sort of realized that your objectives were just things like you either are trying to collect the red dice, the green dice, the blue dice, the yellow dice, or whatever else.
Yes.
And sometimes the dice just don't shake out for you. I mean, everybody might have fulfilled their map to the best of their abilities, score all the points, and then the person that got green dice might score the least because green dice just never rolled that high. Right. And I think that's a little unfair, but I think the actual puzzle element of it is super fun.
Yeah.
There's a new version of it, Sagrada Artisans, that's just come out. It's a legacy version.
Ooh.
I would be really curious to try that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's cooperative or it's competitive, but I love the puzzle. I don't like kind of the scoring.
Yeah, the puzzle and just the concept. I really like the use of the clear dice as stained glass. I think, it's very clever. It's very cute.
It's very cool. Yeah. I like it a lot. 73, Sagrada.
My number 73. Clearly, I ranked these in a comparison.
Oh boy.
My number 73 is Railroad Ink.
Oh, okay. Yep. So you're like, okay, I liked Railroad Ink above Cartographers. And both of those better than Dwellings of Eldervale.
Yes. So that thing that stresses you out about Roll and Writes does not stress me out.
Yeah, I know you love that.
So, yeah. So Railroad Ink. It's Roll and Write. I think you were talking about the last time. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be connected to one that you've played, but it does have to be connected to one you've played or one of the outside
right.
open, like the starting places for the different paths.
Right.
So there are options. But yeah, I think Railroad Ink is puzzly. It's fun. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Cool.
73, Railroad Ink.
All right, 72 for me is a game that might be the meanest game that we have in our collection, but it's also one that I feel like every time we play, we just end up laughing a lot.
Sure.
And that is Survive, Escape from Atlantis.
Yes. It is really mean.
It's so mean. I mean, because the basic premise of the game is everybody has their meeples on this island, which are these different tiles. You've got beach tiles, forest tiles, rock tiles.
Yes.
And every turn you start by removing a tile. First you remove the beach tiles, then the forest, then the rock tiles are all that's left. And so every turn you start by removing one of those tiles. If you remove it under somebody else's meeple, splash, they're in the ocean. And of course, when they're in the ocean, they can fall victim to sharks or sea monsters. And then you've got these boats that you're trying to get into to then get you to the corners, which are like the safety islands.
Right. And so you're kind of fighting for control of the boats and directing them to like where you want to go.
Right.
And avoiding the sea monsters and the sharks and stuff.
Well, and one of the most interesting things about it is all your meeples have a point value on the bottom of them.
They do, yeah.
And so you can see those point values at the beginning of the game, but once you place them, you can never see them again. And so it's kind of like this rush of like, maybe you remember where 1 or 2 are, but you've likely forgotten as you're placing them around.
Right, and so is this one that I'm working so hard to get to the island like a 2-pointer, or is it my like 8-point-1?
There's nothing better than playing that game where somebody has fought so hard to get like the most meeples to the islands.
And they're all the low scoring.
And they're all the low scoring ones. And it's just like, good, you saved the most people and you still lose.
Yeah.
But it's very silly. I think it's actually a little hard to find now. I don't know that it's still in print, but if you can, it is an enjoyable game. It's pretty easy to teach, and we always laugh a lot for it.
It's true. Yeah.
So 72, Survive, Escape from Atlantis.
All right, my number 72 is Decrypto.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised it's that low, honestly.
Really?
I like that game a lot.
Yeah. So Decrypto is kind of like Codenames-esque, yeah?
Yeah, I like it better than Codenames.
Yes, I mean, Codenames, I don't think made my top 100 list. But this one did. And I think what I like about it is kind of that it's got a couple of extra things to it that I enjoy. And also the competitive part of it, I think, is fun.
Yeah.
You know, as we got into the game, you know, we were playing with one of our other couple friends, and man, you guys just like had all of these like secret codes that we just didn't get.
Yeah.
And it was maddening, but it was definitely a well-deserved victory.
Yeah, because the way that game works is that you have 4 words that you're trying to give it out, and so you're trying to give people clues to guess which words those are without the other team picking up on what goes with what. And so you're looking for these very abstract connections. And for me and my buddy, we kind of figured out like, if we do references from video games, they're never going to figure this out.
Because you're also trying to figure out what order they're in.
Right.
Like that's the puzzle. So, yeah. So for me, 72, Decrypto.
All right. My last game for this list is a game that you mentioned very early in your list. In fact, I think it was your number 100. And that is Point City.
Yeah.
Point City is it's a popcorn game. I mean, it is just one that, you got a couple minutes, you can bring it to the table with anybody, you plop it down there, you set up the grid, and then you just basically say, like, here's how it works. You see the different resources, you need those resources to grab those cards cards give you points and other resources. I also just really like the design of the cards. It's nothing... I mean, it's not super artistic, but it's just very simplistic, and I just appreciate that so much about it. Yeah. But basically, you've got this grid of cards that either have the building on there or it has the resource. And on your turn, you can take 2 cards, or you can purchase things. And it's just super simple. It's super snappy. The only thing that's hard to remember is like, did you take a resource or a card? Okay,
right.
So you always have to keep that grid. But it's a lot of fun. I recommend it to just about anybody that's just looking for kind of that quick pick up and play game. Number 71, the final game for this list, Point City.
All right, my final game for this section of our list is Jamaica. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a racing game.
Yeah.
Where you're racing these other boats while trying to also collect treasure. And I had a lot of fun playing this. This is actually one that we played at a board game cafe.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't own this one. We played it there from their library, and it was a really fun experience. It's better than some racing games, I think.
Yeah, this is one that I always feel like plays better with a lot more players.
Yeah, we played it with 4,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, it's a good game.
It is, and when you play with more players, you have a lot more of the treasure taking, and
we didn't
end up in the same spots.
Yeah,
firing back and forth, which is cool.
Yeah, we didn't really have a lot of interaction between players, and I think the times that we did, it ended up being the same person was getting hit every single time.
Yeah.
So it just felt a little mean, and I think that kind of took away from this specific experience for me, but it's one that I would be interested in playing again.
Cool.
So yeah, number 71, Jamaica.
All right, that wraps up this part of our top 100 list of games of all time that we played in 2023. Mm-hmm. So if you're enjoying this list, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel here. It helps us spread the word about all the things that we are doing. Plus, you'll be notified when we drop the next video. Thanks so much for coming by.
We'll see you next time.